Welcome to the Carriker Chronicles, the People Show. Checking the pulse of Husker Nation, brought to you by DPS Concrete Construction. This is my gut reaction to Iowa's 13-10 victory over Nebraska in football today. Now, we're just going to chat. I mean, I got millions of notes just like always, but we're going to chat about this game. But before I dive into that, make sure you support Nebraska volleyball as they travel to Wisconsin and they face the Badgers in a rematch of a great volleyball match from earlier this year. Also, Nebraska soccer is playing in the Elite Eight versus Stanford. They're both coming up here shortly. Make sure you support those teams and programs as well. I think what's challenging, not just this game, because I'm looking back at this game, but also the last 4 games. It's challenging how we lost. It's challenging that the games were close. It's challenging that we couldn't find ways to win. It's challenging that we look like the better first half team versus Wisconsin and then no adjustments in the second half. It's challenging that Iowa was the better first half team today. We were the better second half team, and yet they find a way to win. These weren't uber tough opponents, okay, week after week. Couldn't find a way to win. Just things here and there. All right, here we go. Nebraska has lost 23 straight games, now 24 versus ranked opponents. Now, if you're as frustrated with how we lost these last 4 games in a row, whether it be game management, clock management, poor uses of timeouts, just finding ways to lose a bunch of these close games as opposed to finding a way to win, smash the like button. All right, real quick, coming in. Now, this is Brian Ferentz, Baby Ferentz, third to last game he was going to coach. He's going to coach the Big Ten Championship game. He's going to coach in the bowl game after this. Now, backup quarterback, Deacon Hill. Okay, after Cade McNamara, the transfer from Michigan, got hurt earlier this year, been done for the year. Deacon Hill came in and he struggled. Guy looks like a defensive lineman. I can say that. I used to be a D lineman quarterback in high school. He looks like a big old D lineman playing quarterback out there. Okay, his first 3 starts, he was awful. He had a 34% completion percentage. His last 3 games had changed a lot. He was completing 65% of his passes, 78% completion percentage on first down coming into this game. Now, Iowa's defense, very good as we know. All right, 7 straight games under 17 points they've allowed to their opponents coming into the game today. This is all pre-game, the longest active streak in America. Okay, plus their opponents, they've held them 4 straight games under 300 yards, which is the second longest active streak in the country. And they were without defensive back and returner stud, Cooper DeJean, who's going to be a first-round draft pick. Okay, so hopefully he gets healthy sooner rather than later. Just rooting for him on an individual basis. Shepard Purdy starts his 2nd straight game. By far our best passing quarterback, and yes, I know how the game ended today. I'll get to that, okay. He had over 100 yards rushing last week, so he can run, he can throw, he's a dual threat guy. All right, if you didn't catch it during the broadcast, because they only mentioned it 15 times, he was a higher ranked recruit than his older brother, Brock Purdy, coming out of high school. Brock's now the 49ers starting quarterback. All right, last week, Purdy had 274 total yards of offense, the most by any Husker quarterback this year. All right, the black shirts coming into this game. Again, I always go pregame, during the game, then I give my final thoughts at the end of the videos. Okay, black shirts, a top 10 defense in the nation in 3 different defensive categories coming into today, top 20 in the FBS in 5 different defensive categories. And now that Ty Robinson has declared he's going to come back, they're going to have at least 9 returning starters coming back next year. All right, Nebraska versus Iowa. This is their 54th all-time meeting was today. There's only like a 4-hour drive between the 2 schools. All right, the Huskers lead the series 30, now 21-3 after today. Bryce Benhart started his 41st career game today, tying the all-time Husker record for a Husker offensive lineman. Kirk Ferentz, his 25th season at Iowa, the longest tenured active head coach in the country. The second is Mike Gundy, okay, at Oklahoma State. Nick Saban's been at Alabama for 17 years. Now let's get to the game. 4:30 left in the first quarter. The Huskers fumble a punt return. And I'm thinking, great, here we frickin' go. Iowa recovers around our 10-yard line. Iowa had just had a fumble themselves that Nebraska did not get. Now, they put it on the ground a few times today. We didn't get it. They took advantage of all of our opportunities, seemingly, that we gave them to take the ball away from us. Now, the black shirts held strong, forced an Iowa field goal. All right, the Hawkeyes make it, but there's a delay of game. And then on the next field goal attempt, the black shirts, because it's basically the defense out there, but the special teams, the black shirts, the defensive guys on special teams, your field goal block unit, block the field goal, and that was huge at that point in time. Now, just a couple minutes left in the first quarter. The score is 0-0. At this point, it actually was an interesting game to watch with all the back and flow and ebbs and flows and kind of ugly football at times. At that point, all right, a couple minutes left in the first quarter, score is 0-0. We'd had 3 punts, 1 block field goal, 74 combined total yards between the 2 teams. All right, this was the lowest over-under coming into this game at 24.5 points in the history of college football, and they were still under, and a total of 23 points between the 2 teams. 13:22 left in the first half. Finally, our first score of the game. Okay. I don't mean for Nebraska, I just mean in general. All right, Iowa quarterback Deacon Hill scores on a 3rd and goal for the Hawkeyes on a quarterback sneak. Now, he reached the ball over. The ball crossed the plane, but it looked like it was loose. I wanted another look at it. I couldn't tell if he had full control over it, the ball as it crossed the plane, because it definitely ended up being a fumble, but I wanted to get another look at it, but I couldn't see it. Iowa leads 7-0. The Huskers' next possession, Chubba Purdy fumbles. He's running around. He does kind of like a little pitch forward pass thing. And actually, it got knocked loose right before he did it. Otherwise, it would have been an incomplete pass, but he fumbles it. Okay, they get the ball on Nebraska's 44-yard line. That's Nebraska's 30th fumble of the year, 15th lost fumble of the year at that point in time. Both, as of right now, are then lead the nation. All right, with 5:44 before halftime, Iowa attempts another field goal 28 yards away. They make it. They're up 10-0 on the Huskers. At that point in time, Iowa had 37 plays. The Huskers had 13. Time of possession advantage for the Hawkeyes was over. They had the ball over 18 minutes. Nebraska had it 5:49 at that point. Iowa, okay, had 10 first downs, and they had 10 third down attempts to convert a first down already at that point in time. That just shows how much they controlled the ball. Okay, Nebraska only had 2 first downs. The Hawkeyes had 135 yards total offense. Nebraska had 44 at that point. Now, right after that, after I wrote that, Chubba Purdy hits lightly recruited true freshman, speedy wide receiver Jalen Lloyd from Omaha, Nebraska on a 66-yard touchdown pass. Now, at halftime, this was over half of our total yards that we had going into halftime. Okay, but this gives the Huskers their first score, makes the score 10-7. All right. This was the longest play Iowa's defense had given up all year. Reminded me of Trey Palmer from a year ago, okay? This Jalen Lloyd, as far as his ability to take the top off of defense and make some big catches, because he's done it now 2 weeks in a row. Now, basically what happened on this play was Iowa, both their safeties, fake blitz. They ended up covering the underneath routes, which left Jalen Lloyd's man covering him one-on-one with no safety help deep, and he beat him on a post route. Okay, now Matt Rule loves not only his raw talent, but his mental approach, talking about Lloyd. Now, Iowa's offense was doing a lot of 3 tight ends this game, a lot of 13 personnel, 1 running back, 3 tight ends. And I was like, that's interesting. And why I think they did it is they were trying to get even more bigger bodies on the field rather than extra wide receivers or whatever the case may be. Let's have our O-line, let's have extra tight ends, and let's take advantage of this fast yet undersized 3-3-5 Nebraska defense. At least that's what I think their approach was. Now, Iowa's offense breaks the big run, 1st and goal. Black Shirts force a field goal, and it's blocked again. This was freaking huge. Okay, this really gave Nebraska a chance to win the game. All right, this time it was Nash Hutmaker. Easy for me to say, Nash Hutmaker. All right, that's 6 points off the board and a momentum swing for Nebraska. Good God, Hutmaker and Robinson will be so fun to watch together again next year. All right, now real quick, this is halftime. Here's what I put out on Facebook and Twitter at halftime. Go give me a follow on social media, #GPlug. Not a fan of some of the play calling and clock management so far, but we've really also been outplayed to this point. Thank God for big plays, 2 blocked field goals, and a 66-yard touchdown pass to Jalen Lloyd. The longest play Iowa's defense has given up all. Your offense has to find a way to get something going. Our defense has had some big stops, which they had, but they have to stop getting gashed. And when we needed a big stop at the end, they got gashed again with a couple of missed tackles. I said, I'll tell you what, you can't fault their efforts so far, but the Black Shirts have to tackle better. Now you go into halftime. Here's some of the interesting stats. All right, we'd already given up 200 yards to Iowa, a team that only averages 245 yards of total offense a game, 130th in the FBS. We only had 118 yards at halftime. They had ran 45 plays to our 19, and we had thrown the ball more than we'd ran it, 10 passes to 9 runs at that point. They've had the ball 15 more minutes than we had at that point in time. That's just in the first half alone. We also had 2 turnovers, and they'd had multiple fumbles, but they'd recover it. Their fumbles, we had not had such luck. Iowa leads 10-7. Nebraska had only had 2 plays in Iowa's territory to that point in the first half. We were so lucky not to be down by more. You got the blocked field goals. Also, their top wide receiver, Caleb Brown, also dropped a touchdown pass right in his hands. Somehow that got overlooked. Okay, by the way, I just got to mention, it was kind of annoying to me, these announcers, how they would just keep repeating things, and then they kind of disagree with each other. Did you hear? Caleb Brown is the most highly recruited wide receiver Iowa's ever had. Okay, did you hear that? Because they only mentioned it like 5 times. And to me, I was like, who cared? That's like being the best ice fisherman in the state of Florida, okay? And I got to give props to Sean Callahan. That is not an Adam Carriker original saying right there. 6:30 left in the third quarter. Huskers drive into Iowa territory. Tristan Alvano makes a 44-yard field goal. We're tied at 10-10. And to this point in the game, Chuba Purdy was 7-16 passing, okay? 7 completions to 7 different receivers. Now, 4:10 left in the third quarter. Nebraska, in the third quarter alone, had 61 yards of total offense, okay? Iowa only had 7. You could see we made halftime adjustments. You could see we made in-game adjustments. We were the better second half team until the last 5 minutes. We'll get to that. Okay, and I even said, did we make good halftime adjustments and in-game adjustments? I guess we'll see. Now, at this point, Iowa's quarterback, Deacon Hill, was one of his last 10 when it came to passing in the game for a total of 9 yards. The Black Shirts really played a lot better for the most part in the second half. Beginning of the fourth quarter, the Huskers pin Iowa on their own 1-yard line. The special teams, for the most part, had really been huge for Nebraska today, okay? Nebraska gets the ball back at their 50-yard line. They drive down for a 44-yard field goal attempt, okay? Purdy, during that drive, converted 2 crucial third down conversions through the air. Okay, unfortunately, Alvano missed the field goal. To this point, and I'll say it again, we look like the better second half team with good halftime adjustments. Everything I've already mentioned. There's 5 minutes left in the game. It's a 10-10 tie. Who's going to find a way to win? The Black Shirts had only allowed 24 total yards to Iowa in the second half up to that point with 5 minutes left. And we had more than 4 times as many yards as they did in the second half and had the ball nearly 13 more minutes. We'd almost flipped the script. So now that we're back to even, now that it's 10-10, now that it's square one, now that we've done some things that are good, who's going to find a way to win? All right, Iowa's offense had 4 consecutive 3-and-outs. Let's see how this game ends up. Now, random side note, the last time Nebraska blocked 2 field goals in a game was in 2005. It was a game that I happened to play in, but back to what matters. All right, the last 5 meetings between the Huskers and the Hawkeyes. All right, the average margin of victory is only 5 points. Several of them had come down to last-second plays. I believe there was an overtime game in there. I could be wrong, but it's always close. 40 seconds left in the game. The Black Shirts intercept Deacon Hill, and I'm thinking, boom, we got it. We're either going to win it here, or we're going to take it to overtime, and we've been the better team, or we're going to win it in overtime. We get the ball at our own 45-yard line. Iowa, a couple plays later, does a zone blitz. Basically, you blitz, you drop some defensive linemen, defensive ends. Quarterbacks aren't looking for it, which is why a lot of times those defensive ends get picks thrown right to them, and that's exactly what happened. Unfortunately, Chuba Purdy throws it right to Iowa's defensive end. Iowa's Hawkeyes drive into field goal range, bringing their backup field goal kicker to attempt his first field goal kick of the year. He makes it, and Iowa wins 13-10. Now, the announcers did point out there was a point maybe a minute or two earlier in the game where 12 seconds didn't run off the clock. That could have ran off the clock, and maybe that alters the outcome of the game. I don't know. We can whine, complain, and moan. Things happen. Yeah, it sucks. It is what it is. Final thoughts, and I got 4. First, my heart breaks for these seniors. What a tough way to go out on senior day. On your home field, to your rival, trying to go to a bowl game. My heart just breaks for them. Number 2, seriously, we couldn't find a way to win one of the last 4 games. Some of them versus not great teams, by the way. Number 3, this is why Iowa is the first team in college football history to win 10 games while only averaging 245 yards of offense a game. They find ways to win. It is butt ugly football, and they're good at it. They embrace it, and they win with it somehow. And we don't. Number 4, it's not all doom and gloom, okay? There's a lot of young talent on this Nebraska football team. A lot of young talent. Now, these coaches got some things to learn for the Huskers, and that's pretty obvious, but it is just year 1 under Matt Rule, okay? Now, I got 3 questions for you fine folks at home. Number 1, Nebraska is 5-7. If they're offered to go to a bowl game, should they go? And no, I don't think that's a dumb question. Number 2, do you feel better or worse about Matt Rule after year 1? Number 3, what are your thoughts on Marcus Satterfield's play calling throughout the game? And my final thoughts on the game, the last 4 games, year 1 under Matt Rule. I can see some positives. I can see where we're better at running the football. No, not versus Iowa. They're really freaking good, and we aren't there yet. Our defense is better, but they struggle against really good offenses at times. There was crucial times where they couldn't get the crucial stop, but overall, they're by far our best unit, and Tony White's a really good coach. Our special teams was up and down this year, but our special teams gave us a chance to win today. There are pluses, there are minuses. In this moment, I'm uber frustrated that we can't find ways to win close games, game after game after game after game versus not great teams. And yes, Iowa, all due respect, won 10 games this year. I'm talking about some of the other opponents and Iowa, who we were favored to be at home. But there is some positives. There is talent. There is young guys. It's a gut reaction, ladies and gentlemen. I'm allowed to be all over the place. All right, subscribe to this YouTube channel. Do me a favor. I'm going to be putting out another show this weekend. Check out CarrikerChronicles.com. Go Big Red, and always remember, throw the bones.
If you're a diesel mechanic, CDL driver, or concrete finisher looking for work in the Omaha metro area, DPS Construction is the employer for you. If you're a general contractor, building owner, or property manager looking for concrete repair or work done in the Omaha metro area, such as street paving, building floors, and parking lots, check out dpsconstruction.net.